Hello. So I watched last night The King's Speech, directed by I think Tom Hooper is his name, and it stars um, Colin Firth and Jeffrey Rush and some other people. This movie won the Best Picture Oscar, and I think it won the Best Director Oscar, and then it won something else as well. I wanted to talk about it briefly due to the fact that I felt that the film was very overrated amongst critics, and apparently amongst the Academy and the majority of the audience as well. It's got something like an 8.4 average rating on IMDb, and something like 96% positive at RottenTomatoes.com. And it's not that I can't see where the good reviews are coming from. I feel like the film was well done, and it's the type of film that sort of appeals, I think, to the critical masses. However, in terms of it being accessible to a wide audience, I don't really think that the film, I don't know, hits the mark in that regard. Basically, the movie, and I didn't even know this prior to seeing it. I thought that the King's Speech was alluding to like a specific speech that he was going to be giving, and the film was going to be just about him preparing for that or something like that. So I suppose to some extent I went into the film sort of blind as to what to expect. I mean, I had expectations due to all the good reviews, but I still didn't know exactly what it was about. Anyway, the movie is about Colin Firth's character, who is a duke of some place, and he's the son of a king, and he has a speech impediment that is such that he can't talk properly. Basically, that's what a speech impediment is. But when he needs to deliver speeches and he needs to converse with other political figures, he can't do it because he can't get the words out, and he just can't communicate efficiently or at all, really. And so Jeffrey Rush plays a speech therapist who is supposed to help him overcome his speech impediment so that he can communicate properly and take over the throne of the king and ultimately become this great political figure. And honestly, like I felt like the overall storyline in that regard wasn't all that amusing. I didn't think that it was that deep or that substantial. I mean, there wasn't really a point where I felt myself completely engaged in the film. I felt like the characters were well developed, and you sort of got a feeling of, the difficulty that um, Colin Firth's character was going through in terms of not being able, and in terms of having all of this pressure put upon him about taking over the throne and meeting all these expectations and not being able to due to the speech impediment that he has. So I mean that was conveyed well, and there were kind of moments that were a little bit funny here and there, but it was more of like a subtle sort of spontaneous bit of humor as opposed to just consistently spread throughout. And so overall, I mean, I wasn't really drawn to the film, and there wasn't there. It was well shot, but there's nothing specifically notable about it that I would point to and say this about this film is spectacular. I mean, the performances were really good, but again, the characters were played well, but to me the characters weren't all that interesting. So I'm not exactly sure why it wasn't that appealing to me, but I can't really say that I recommend it to most people. I suppose for those interested in sort of costume dramas, you probably would enjoy this film. Unfortunately, I generally am not drawn to costume dramas, and this was really no different. Barry Lyndon is one exception, I suppose, but uh, I can't really recommend the film. I probably would give it like 3 out of 5, just due to the fact that it was well done and certain aspects of it were certainly admirable, like the performances, and the direction was fine. I mean, it certainly didn't deserve to. Tom Hooper, didn't deserve to win the Best Directing Oscar by any stretch of the imagination, in my opinion. But um, that's something. that's another story, I guess. So 3 out of 5, again, not really recommended, but check it out if you want. And I suppose that just due to the fact that it won the Best Picture, you probably should watch it just so you know how crazy and moronic and imbecilic the Academy really is. So I guess that might be reason enough too. But anyway, that's all I have to say.